Breaking tonight, everything is collapsing for Donald Trump. And I mean everything. The Supreme Court demolished his tariff strategy this morning. His response? He cursed at the judiciary, stormed out of a governor's breakfast, and then marched to a podium to announce brand new tariffs on the entire planet. Tariffs that expire in 150 days and max out at 15%. This is not the move of a powerful president. This is the desperate flailing of a man watching his empire crumble in real time. Tensions are reaching a critical threshold in Washington tonight, because what happened today didn't happen in isolation. This is one collapse stacked on top of another, stacked on top of another. The Epstein scandal is tightening around his inner circle. His Greenland fantasy is dead. His approval ratings are in free fall. His own party is voting against him. And now the highest court in the land, including 3 justices he personally appointed, just told him his signature economic policy was illegal from day one. Everyone believed Donald Trump was untouchable. Wall Street assumed the tariff revenue stream was permanent. Foreign leaders assumed the economic pressure would never stop. Political commentators assumed a conservative Supreme Court would protect the president who built it. They were all utterly incorrect. Washington, D.C., February 20th, 2026. Approximately 45 minutes after the Supreme Court issued its devastating 6-3 ruling striking down his IEEPA tariffs, Donald Trump was sitting at a working breakfast with governors at the White House. According to CNN's Caitlin Collins, when aides informed him of the ruling, Trump erupted. He called the decision a disgrace. But that was just the beginning. Sources in the room told CNN the president became enraged and directed some extremely colorful language at the courts. The kind of language I won't repeat on this channel, but I think you can all imagine what an unraveling Donald Trump says behind closed doors when his entire economic agenda just got shredded by his own appointees. He then cut the breakfast short, told the governors he had a backup plan, and left the room. Translation: the most powerful man on earth just threw a tantrum over breakfast because the Constitution told him no. And what he did next reveals exactly how cornered he really is. Dear viewers, let me walk you through precisely what happened in the hours after the ruling, and why every single move Trump made today screams weakness, not strength. First, the press conference. Trump appeared before reporters visibly furious. He called the ruling deeply disappointing. He said he was ashamed of certain members of the court. He thanked and congratulated the 3 dissenting justices, Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh, as if they were soldiers who fought bravely in a losing battle. Then a reporter asked whether the 6 justices who ruled against him were still invited to his State of the Union address on Tuesday. His answer? They are, but barely. Pause on that. The President of the United States publicly threatened Supreme Court justices with disinvitation from the State of the Union because they upheld the Constitution. This is not governance. This is revenge politics from a man who has run out of legitimate tools. And then came the so-called backup plan. Trump announced he would sign an executive order imposing a 10% global tariff on every country under Section 122 of the Trade Act. He called it a strong alternative. He said he had great alternatives available. But here is what he did not tell you. Section 122 tariffs are capped at 15%. They expire after 150 days, and after that, he needs congressional approval to extend them. Compare that to what he just lost. Under IEEPA, Trump could impose tariffs of any amount on any country for any duration with 0 congressional oversight. Unlimited power. Now, he has a temporary tool with a built-in expiration date and a ceiling that is a fraction of what he was charging before. That is not a backup plan. That is a downgrade of historic proportions. And Congress knows it. Just last week, House Joint Resolution 72 passed the House of Representatives, a bipartisan resolution calling for the repeal of Trump's tariffs on Canada. 6 Republicans crossed the aisle to vote with every single Democrat. The resolution is now heading to the Senate, where it is expected to pass with bipartisan support. Read that again. Members of Trump's own party are publicly voting against his tariff agenda. The cracks in the Republican wall are not forming, they have formed. And after today's Supreme Court humiliation, the question isn't whether more Republicans will break ranks. The question is, how many? Now let me zoom out because today's tariff disaster didn't happen in a vacuum. This is a president being squeezed from every direction simultaneously. The Epstein files, 3 million pages of documents released by the Department of Justice, Trump's name appearing throughout. His Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, confirmed under oath that he and his family had lunch on Jeffrey Epstein's Caribbean island. The DOJ released FBI-compiled lists of sexual assault allegations related to Trump. Attorney General Pam Bondi was caught holding the search history of a congresswoman reviewing the files. Lawmakers accused the DOJ of spying on their oversight work. Prominent figures across Europe are losing jobs, titles, and facing criminal investigations. In the United States, the administration is circling the wagons and hoping it goes away. It is not going away. It is getting worse by the day. And heading into midterm season, every Democratic challenger in every competitive district now has 3 million pages of ammunition. Then there's Greenland. Remember when Trump was going to acquire the world's largest island? When he threatened military force? When his administration ordered the Joint Chiefs to draw up invasion plans? When he imposed tariffs on 8 European allies for daring to object? That dream is dead. At Davos in January, Trump backed down. No force, no purchase. A vague framework with NATO that includes no transfer of sovereignty, no details, and no path to American ownership. 85% of Greenlanders oppose an American takeover. Denmark said no. NATO said no. Even Trump's own polling showed only 14% of Americans supported military intervention. The Greenland fantasy didn't just fail. It alienated European allies, destabilized NATO, and gave every trading partner on Earth another reason to diversify away from American dependence. Sound familiar? Now compound all of this. Tariffs struck down, Epstein scandal metastasizing, Greenland humiliation complete, approval ratings cratering, manufacturing jobs declining, 108,000 lost in 2025 alone. A State of the Union address in 4 days that needs to be completely rewritten, and a brand new set of revenge tariffs that expire before the midterm elections even arrive. This is not a president operating from strength. This is a president who had concentrated more unilateral economic power than any American leader since the Great Depression, and watched it get stripped away in a single morning by 3 of his own appointees. And this, right here, is why Canada was right, why Mark Carney was right. Every single time Ottawa was mocked for diversifying trade partnerships, every single time critics said Canada was overreacting to American tariffs, every single time someone argued that Canada should just negotiate quietly and hope Trump would show mercy, every single one of those arguments died on the steps of the Supreme Court this morning. Because here is what Carney understood from the beginning and what today's chaos proves beyond any reasonable doubt. You cannot build a national economy on the assumption that American trade policy will be stable. You cannot anchor your prosperity to a president who governs by executive order, who changes tariff rates based on his mood, and whose entire economic architecture can be declared illegal by his own Supreme Court on a Friday morning. That is not a foundation. That is quicksand. And Canada chose bedrock. Every trade diversification deal signed over the past year, every new partnership with Europe, Asia, and the Indo-Pacific, every investment in Canadian manufacturing, energy independence, and supply chain sovereignty, all of it looks not just prudent tonight, it looks prophetic. Because while Washington descends into legal chaos and presidential tantrums, Canada is standing exactly where it positioned itself: independent, diversified, sovereign. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce warned today that this story is far from over. New, blunter mechanisms may be coming. Section 232 tariffs on steel, aluminum, and autos remain in place. The Kuzma review is approaching, and a wounded, humiliated Trump heading into midterms is arguably more dangerous than a confident one. But the fundamental equation has shifted. Trump's leverage is shrinking. His tools are weaker. His party is fracturing. His scandals are multiplying. And Canada, strategic, prepared, resilient Canada, is not waiting for permission from Washington to prosper. Dear viewers, what you are witnessing is not just a bad day for Donald Trump. It is the structural erosion of a presidency that built its entire identity on unchecked power. The courts said no. Congress is saying no. The allies are saying no. And the American people, watching prices rise and manufacturing jobs disappear, are starting to say no too. Canada saw this coming. Carney planned for this. And tonight, the evidence speaks for itself. If you're part of this community, you already know we've been tracking this trajectory for months. If this is your first time here, welcome. Subscribe and hit that notification bell because the next chapters of this story are going to be extraordinary. And you are going to want to be here for every single one. This is Canada Next. Stay informed, stay sovereign.